coming on an otherwise pretty ugly morning so early. But I'm Dan Red. I'm joined by my wife, Rebecca Red back here. In that same area, kind of hard to see. Where's the little squirt? This is Dexter Red. I guess due Father's Day of June this year. So my role here, in fact, there's a couple of business cards here. And if you don't get a business card, that's fine. We've been blessed that on Google and the World Wide Web, if you type in Camarillo or Ventura film transfer or photo montage or Oxnard 8mm film transfer, we're likely coming up on that page. Maybe not on the very top, but on that page. And that's exactly what we do is with the hope that within 6 months, the family search will include now audio, but then also motion picture or video. So these ideas, and she'll be showing us how we can be using and loading photos ourselves, taking photos of folks within photo albums ourselves, but of preparing a photo montage. I'm sorry.
Environmental issues that are affecting that?
I've only had one customer. He stored his films and VHS in the bilge of his boat. As long as you have it, and as long as they've been stored high and dry, it will be fine. It's only age, it's the test of time that causes the bride, she's holding a rose, that rose over time will bleed. You'll see it kind of in her dress. Colors become oversaturated. And I've noticed at the bottom, especially at the beginning of tapes, you'll see a little tracking disturbance at the bottom of that. The film reels, when they come to the door, you'll know it. You'll smell it. It smells like vinegar. You open the can, it smells terrible, and you'll see what looks like almost cotton on it. So as long as visually your tape looks okay, it smells okay, and you know very well it's just in the bowels of the closet somewhere, it's probably going to be fine.
So moisture is a greater...
Moisture is just absolutely terrible. You know, even if you're in an environment of high humidity, it's not a problem as long as it's not in the bilge of your boat. You know, or fire. That I guess is not such a distant number two. But any other questions or anything else? Sure.
You said it's possible to take from VHS to put it on a disc or some.
Exactly. Yes.
Is it possible then to break down? Let's say you have a video or a recording of somebody telling about their family.
Yeah.
Is it possible to break down to the stores that says she's talking about her brother here and her sister here and her sister here, to break it down into smaller files?
Exactly.
So that way when we can upload it onto like Family Search or Ancestry, we're able to just attach those one little files to that person.
Right. We find more and more less is more, and people want to have things broken up. So I can either take orders over the telephone, I can take it by email and saying when the uncle starts blathering on in this area, we don't want that. In fact, we don't even want that uncle.
But we can break it down enough so
yes.
that, because I know sometimes they say you can only upload so much per person.
Okay.
So if we're able to spread that, and then, if
right.
a VHS had over like 10, 20 people,
sure,
that it would work better for the system.
We even have an ability to cheat a little bit. If it's just a little too long, we actually we'll use the word compress that file, so you can get something a lot longer. And to the eye on a screen this size, you will not be able to tell that we've compressed it down. So if it's just kind of went a little over that 3-minute mark, whatever the limit they might put on us here in the future, that's something that can still be dealt with. So over the phone, people tell me I want to edit this, or we have an unusual setup where I actually literally can sit side by side with my customer. We go on an hourly, and within an hour we can get tons of work and curtailing and titles and identifying dates and those sorts of things together within a short amount of time.
Maybe my dad.
Okay, good. A couple more too. That's kind of where I guess I originally started was, as she said, almost 20 years ago, 17 years ago, of transferring the old 8mm film reel over to VHS, of course, at that time. And what's so ironic is we have those same customers coming to us with now the DVD going over to digital. And that's where we're kind of dovetailing together with Mary to talk about the way of getting now digital files, so not DVDs, but digital files, more likely MPEG-4, over into this kind of infrastructure. One of the secrets that people out in the film transfer business will tell you is that your 8mm film reels, some of you that haven't had that done yet, are not getting older. They're getting older, but they're not deteriorating. If you have VHS or the old camcorder tapes of 8mm or high 8 or even digital 8, those, VHS especially, are deteriorating. And what I can tell you is the reason that is if you can just kind of picture an old film reel, the actual film or ribbon is actually kind of robust, it's strong, whereas if you pull apart an old, a VCR or VHS cassette, that is very weak. You'll see there are tracking issues. If you're playing an old tape, there are color bleeding associated with that. So I've always told people on the phone, if you have 8mm film reels, you're on a budget and have to kind of consider one or the other, transfer the stuff more from the 80s and 90s now. The stuff from Grandpa or Uncle Eddie's from the 70s will actually last a little longer. It'll withstand that test of time longer. Learning just like you guys, when people come to my business, which is at All Your Memories on DVD.com, and they have us do this for them. We'll scan the pictures and that sort of thing. So I thought maybe I could share a couple little tips if someone's been doing it for like 20 years of scanning pictures, or and tips for you guys. You guys use scanners? I like what she was talking about earlier. She was talking about just using your iPhone, or your Samsung or something like that. And you just, one of my suggestions is that, let's just say I'm using this as a table, and here's my photograph. Light is going to be your best friend, and it may look like in a room like this with all the incandescent lighting that it's enough light. If you have a door or a window, if you could open it, it makes a huge difference. What happens is when you don't have light, no matter the megapixels of the iPhone or the Samsung, this or that, is it becomes grainy, the background of your photograph. So the key is light. So what we're doing today, in fact, the description I learned this morning just before I spoke is it's preserving on disc. We're doing one better, because discs is DVD, of course. That can be played on a television. It can be played on a laptop if it has a DVD tray. However, you can't, unless you have a special program, be able to take the files off of that DVD that you can very well watch on a television and get in the computer to, say, edit in an iMovie or whatever the PC. They have several different movie maker. You can't unless you have a program that may only cost about $29 online. So what we're doing is rarely we're using the same DVD, but that's now actually a data disc. All we're doing is we're on our computer in the office, we're dragging those files, and we're just dragging it in that DVD, which has a pretty limited capacity. I think it's about 4.17 gigs. Today, more and more, hard drives. Folks are bringing in their hard drives that have up to a terabyte or 2 terabytes of space, and that makes it much easier. It's a lot more space. The prices of hard drives continue to come down. But more and more what I'm seeing today, now going in the future, are thumb drives. They've got a little keychain, and people are able to, for less than $20, get 16 gigabytes. And when we were talking about 8mm film reels, that is still considered analog. It's not the high definition. In analog it's 12.74 gigs per hour. So that's kind of a good note if you're in the Best Buy or Fry's over here. That's kind of the ratio of how many hours. And you might overestimate and go to they do it in increments of 8. I think it's an 8, 16, 32, and then it jumps to 64. Let's just say if you were going to jump and get a great big 64, I can't imagine needing anything larger than that, depending on your archive library. I think those are very well probably around like $29, $35. And now hopping over to video, I have a lot of customers that in fact don't rely on our videography. They'll do it themselves on their Samsung or on their iPhone. And one of the things I'd suggest is going again to light. And again, it will be grainy if you have them sitting in a dark area, on a piano, on a bench. If you could have it where there's not light behind them, but light in front of them. Even in here, if I had someone, my father or my father-in-law, I'd say, could we just go outside? And the first thing I would check is sound. If there's ocean or seagulls or like a freeway, then I would just come immediately right back inside. One of my rules is video is 51% audio. If you don't have good audio, let's say if it's like a wedding and you can't hear the vows, but you can see them perfectly good, then you may as well have nothing, So audio is key, having the camera as close to you as possible. We like to use wireless microphones. Can you think of anything else? Some
Yeah.
other little tips?
If you're going to film using your phones, don't hold them like this, like you normally do. Hold them like this, because that looks way better when you turn it into a video. If you want to put it on YouTube or upload it and watch it later on a TV screen, it's way better to hold it like this. And also, if you, in your video frame, like maybe have a nice flower to one side of her, and her face kind of close up, and any mannerism she might do with her hands, make sure that you get that within your video frame. Be some good advice.
Again, that's my wife, Rebecca Red, and her father, my father-in-law, he felt comfortable in his yard. There's no freeway, there's no ocean, there's no seagulls. He was right in front of like a bougainvillea that was in full bloom. We ended up using a little wireless mic, but just filming people where they're comfortable. My father, I filmed him driving in the car. In fact, he was driving, and in that particular case, I actually relied on my little Samsung. It was an iPhone at the time. That's where he was comfortable, and that was some of the best stories that I got from my father. Wasn't when I had a big bright camera or a light or perfect sound or perfect background. It was just him doing what he does and feeling comfortable. It's nice that we get to, you'll be able to meet your person that's doing the transfer. We've even said that we're proudly serving Ventura County, and just as proudly not serving any other, LA County or Santa Barbara. If someone were here today and you're from, say, Los Angeles County, I would encourage you to find someone there in that more immediate area. And there's probably even more than there are in this area here, people qualified to be able to do this. It's nice to have a personal touch. You can call and talk to the person that's actually doing the transfer themselves. This is interesting. I'm calling it a little magic trick that we can do this morning. And the idea is I can tell each of you what is actually on your film reels without even seeing that. And what I've done with customers is so often they'll say, I just have this, there's 4 shoe boxes, and they're all stacked full of 8mm film reels. We don't know where to start because we're afraid some of these might have things, an old soccer game, or a long St. Patrick's Day parade or something like that. And what I tell them is back then, if you ever recall, most of us are younger here, but in those days when you'd buy the film, it was expensive. The cameras were expensive. And then you'd have to go to a processing facility where it was expensive to process. So what happened is my grandfather or my father, when shooting film, was very selective. Unlike today with our little portable devices, we can just go on the ride at the Small World at Disneyland and record the whole ride, where back then that'd be way too expensive to do. So what I told my customers, if any of those reels that are in those boxes you have, likely will be good stuff. It's going to be a lot of personality, a lot of the kids, not so much of just landscapes or those sorts of things, because it was just so expensive for every second that ticked, for every minute that went by. It's a way of looking at it. VHSs, I can't make that same guarantee. It can just be mundane. A lot of VHSs have movies on them. They have sitcoms on them. And then you have a wonderful interview with, say, Grandma or something on there. So we do a pretty good job, the best we can, of scouring up and back and forth the old tapes to see if we can find anything that will be of any relevance. The last thing I wanted to talk about, speaking with that old interview with Grandma, is that's something that we started probably even before doing any kind of video transfer from VHS, 8mm, high 8, digital 8, 8mm film, 16mm film, 16 with sound, is videography. So we more and more, and by the encouragement of my father-in-law, have been doing family histories. So that's going back to actually being videographers, where we kind of 3 different settings I can describe. One would be going to somebody's home, and they are a pianist, and they have them sitting beside their piano to play a song and go right into talking about their life or some old stories. Something Jim mentioned to me that he wanted me to share with you guys too is you're organizing and getting groups together of aunts and uncles and extended family, is to write down names. This is what Jim wanted me to share with you. For titles, or what we sometimes do, if it's a real light ballpoint pen on the back of the photograph, because it's a decade and all that's lost and forgotten. It makes it really hard if anyone relies on a professional to do it, or if they want to do it themselves, is to go back and remember who's in the photograph. The other is if someone will actually come to our studio. They can very well sit where they're comfortable, or we can even use, I'll use this as an example, it's a white screen. If we have a green screen where we can put Grandpa or Uncle Eddie anywhere. They spend a lot of time in Vegas, and so we can actually put them right there on the strip, you know, or even just a bland kind of a background of blue or whatever their color is. Do living histories, you know, and with the hope that someday with this program here, Family Search, that we'll be able to take these little MPEG-4 videos and put them on our family trees someday is the hope. And I'll bet you within 6 months, probably less than a year, we'll all have that ability to be able to import ourselves that into that infrastructure. So without any further ado, is Mary, and she'll be talking about all the technical things on our cell phones, our tablets, being able to use the Family Search on even a television.
Did anybody have questions or anything?
Yeah, I have a question about
Yes,
that.
absolutely.